So this will be our last video regarding CSS grid, and in this video we will talk about min, max, autofit and autofill, and these three properties will help you to create dynamic grid layout. Starting with the min max, suppose we have a layout like that, in which we have three columns, one FR each, and the grid raw is implicit as we have talked in the last video. So now if I shrink my window, it shrink all the columns as much as possible, and at one time it will overflow just because of my grid content. But now what if I want that my middle column stays at a particular width, and it should not be shrink more than that. Suppose I have a main content in between and I want the whole layout to be shrink, but that particular middle layout should not be shrink. So in that particular case, we can call min max. So in min max, what we can do is that we will call min max, and our minimum width will be 300 pixel and the maximum will be 1 FR. So by default, our layout will be the same, but when we will shrink our window, all the two columns, the most right and the most left column will shrink, but the middle column will not shrink more than 300 pixel. If I go to my dev tool here, we can see that its width is 300 pixel, and while our two columns width is 143.82. So if I shrink more, then these two columns will shrink to 102, but the middle column will stays at 300 pixel. So now if you talk about autofit and autofill, it is used with repeat function only, and you can use it with min max. So in repeat function, the first argument is about how many rows or columns there should be. But if we give autofit and autofill, so there is no need of defining how many rows and columns. Autofit will handle that automatically. So what currently this is doing is that it is defining that you have to make as much columns as you can using this criteria, and the criteria is the minimum width of the column should be 200 pixel and the maximum should be 1 FR. So what it will do, it will try to make as many columns as it can using this criteria. And if I go to my index.html, there are few items here in my HTML structure, and if we go to our web page, so you can see that it tries to make as many columns as it can using that criteria, and each column will not be shorter than 200 pixel width. If now we go to and set that to autofill, it will look the same, and currently there is no change. And if we go and shrink this web page, it will be responsive. I haven't added any type of media query here, so in this case autofit and autofill function the same, but I will give you an example in which we can see that how these two properties are different from each other. Now in order to show the difference between the autofit and autofill, I have removed some of my grid items, and now you can see that there are only three grid items in this grid container. So now if we go to our web page, you can see that now what autofit is trying to do is autofit is trying to make as many columns as it can using this criteria which we have defined here using min max. And now what it will do, when our web page shrinks, it will try to wrap and it will create a new implicit row, and it will move that extra column to that row. So you can see that it will create a responsive layout. On the other hand, if we use autofill here, so you can see that if I go and do this, it will not take the complete width. But if I go and check that there are columns created, there are 1 2 3 and 4 columns created, but there are no items here. So what autofill will do, autofill will create columns just like autofit, but autofill will not try to fill this column with the element available. It will just create columns, as much columns as it can create using that criteria. So our criteria was minimum 200 pixels. So what it does is it just create columns using 200 pixels. So because it wants to fit as many columns as it can. And now what will happen, that if I get a new item, it will be here, and if I don't have new item, it will be empty.